Episode 50. Welcome to the Say Hello podcast. My name is Casey Lynn. I am joined by my co-host, former Major League pitcher for the New York Mets, Bill Pulsifer. I want to thank Chris, as always, behind the scenes. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button on Say Hello Media. And we are everywhere where you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google Chrome, all that. Before we start anything, I got to ask my co-host. It's winter in New York. It's summer down here. How are you? How's the weather? I hear the weather in New York is just not cooperating.
Well, actually, it's kind of broke a little bit. We got into the 40s today, the last couple of days, and we get one more day. We might actually reach quite almost 50 out here in East Moriches. It's been a little bit better, but I think it's going to go back a little bit. You know, I'm still expecting one more cold snap before the team gets up here and baseball season starts. But
oh yeah,
a little bit of a reprieve from all the cold that we've had recently.
You know this. There's the April openers at Shea Stadium back in the day. They were the most freezing freaking days of the year.
Yeah, I remember pitching the second game of a season in Binghamton in '94, and it was 34 degrees.
Yeah, that's football weather.
That wasn't a lot of fun. I remember a lot of guys burning their pants on the jet heaters that were in the dugouts trying to keep people warm.
Well, not too long. 50 in New York is the equivalent during the winter, probably to like 70.
But you guys were in the mid 80s down there, no?
Yeah. It's warm. Snowbirds are in full effect.
I bet. I don't blame them.
So, we got a jam-packed episode for you. It is episode 50. It's a nice little milestone for our listeners who have, been with us since day one. For Bill and for myself, 50 is a nice little milestone. We're just getting started. Jam-packed show. We're going to talk about how I went to the home opener at Clover Park. I'm still rocking the
Thomas J. White Stadium.
Yeah, I know. I know. And it was something before that, too. I forget.
I only remember it as Thomas J. White Stadium when I started going down there in 91, and it's always stuck with me.
Yeah, I got my money's worth. I'm wearing the coolest hat that every Met fan wants.
I was going to say, you look like you have a new hat on.
Yeah, well, I wore it last podcast.
I thought so. I remember your little logo sticking out over there.
Is it? Right,
on the other side. The other side.
There we go.
I thought maybe it was styling and profiling, Case.
No, that's just me being an idiot. So we're going to talk about the second largest record in Clover history for the home opener that I attended on Saturday. All the vibes that went down. Soto's first home run, Clay Holmes pitching. We're going to talk about the injury bug hitting the Mets once again. Not fun, but we got to address it, of course. We're going to go in depth about Jeff McNeil and what kind of year we think Mr. McNeil is going to have in 2025. And also another injury bug, Nick Magarol fractured his shoulder. There's a lot moving parts after this. We're going to get into that. We have Mailbag. And I forgot one thing. Bill and I are going to pick one pitcher from the bullpen that we think is going to have either a breakout year or just a very good year. We'll leave it at that. And, of course, we have the mailbag and quick pitches. So, here we go. Before we start, as all of our listeners know, we start with the number of our podcast. And guys who have worn that number in Mets history, Bill, we've hit 50. We're reaching.
Crazy. I can't believe it's been 50 already. I can't believe it's been 50. And we took a long break.
Yeah.
We're still at 50. Not a long list of players have worn number 50.
No. And actually, I just said, what are we going to do at 75? I think Reed Garrett wears.
I think we're going to possibly be close to being done with naming players that wore that number.
I'll figure something out. It's fun.
Something out.
All right. We got two Hawaiians on the list. And they're household names for Met fans. Yes. Let's start with El Cid, number 50, 1984 to 1993. That is a long time, Bill.
Statistically, one of the hardest pitchers to ever get a hit off of in Major League history.
Yeah. If you go to Baseball Reference, his numbers, and I have a bunch of them, they are just right off the page. You know, he's an underrated pitcher.
Absolutely underrated pitcher. Absolutely. Was always a fun guy to watch, too. Obviously, he got a little bit overshadowed, with the likes of Doc being on the team, but he was also another guy that I really enjoyed to watch play and watch do his thing. He was one of those guys that threw in the mid to upper 80s, but it looked like he was throwing in the mid to upper 90s because he could throw that ball by people. He kind of threw that rising fastball and then had a nice big curveball. Underrated hitter as well.
Yep.
Actually ran into him at Strawberry's number retirement last year. It was nice to actually see him. I'd only met him one time prior, and that was when he was doing a rehab assignment stint and came down to Kissimmee to pitch for the St. Lucie Mets. And that was the first time that I had ever came across him. Didn't really want to bother him much because he was, getting ready for his rehab start. But got a chance to shake his hand and say hello and introduce myself again and say that we were actually teammates for one day.
There you go. You know what? You were teammates for one day. I bet you that is 99 point. Actually, I don't know who's listening to this. Let's say 99.9% more than anyone watching or listening.
I would suspect so. But underrated pitcher and fun to watch play. Fun to watch play.
You know why he's underrated? 10 seasons with the Mets. That is a long time, right? 2-time All-Star, World Series champion in 86. His career numbers for the Mets, 250 game starts. Bill, tell me if I'm wrong here. He's not DeGrom. We know that. But his record, 98 and 78 with a 3.14 ERA.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
So, great. But why we remember El Cid? In the World Series, he pitched 3 games, 6 2/3, and his ERA was 1.35. He finished the game. I forget what game it was. But, that made him one of those folk heroes, if you will, which is crazy to say because 10 years, but he deserves a little more respect, I think.
I agree. Funny story about the Old Timers game just 2 years ago, 2 seasons ago, if you will. Doc's pants kept falling down when he was pitching. And as it turns out, they didn't have Doc's pants, and he was wearing, he says this, but I don't know if it's true or not. But he said he was wearing Sid's pants, and that's why they weren't staying up. I don't know if he was busting chops or not, but Sid was always a bigger guy. I don't know if it's a true story or not, but that's the story that Doc tells.
My only question is, why is Doc Gooden wearing El Cid's pants?
I guess that I don't know. Like I said, that's the story that he tells. That's the story he tells. I'm not sure how true it really is.
Fine. You know what? I'll believe it.
I'm not questioning him.
Yeah, no way. We got another Hawaiian on the list, back to back. Yes. Benny Agbayani. Now that's a folk hero, kind of like a Wilmer Flores, fan favorite.
Hit the grand slam in Japan.
Right? He did at 5 a.m. I remember I woke up to that as a teenager. Yep.
Yeah, I was there in attendance. Went with the club. Didn't make the club out of camp, but was unfortunately camp ended in Japan, so I was there and got to watch it. It wasn't 5 a.m. there, but
wait, camp ended
in Japan? Games, yeah, because we went and played exhibition games against Japanese teams, and they weren't sending the guys that we went over there, and I pitched in the Tokyo Dome against the Giants.
Okay,
and then the final roster was made, and they weren't sending guys home that didn't make the final roster who made the trip. So
let me ask you a question. Since you made the trip around the world, to Japan and all that, pitching exhibition games, did you think you had a chance to make the roster?
Well, of course. I went there hoping to make the roster.
Okay.
But I was going through some of my mental struggles that I had, and it was tough to play at that point in time.
It happens.
It's hard to play when you're dealing with the anxiety that I was going through. But it's still a great trip. A great trip. Got to say that I went there. I guess it was the first time they had done an opening series overseas. It was great to go see Japan. Great to see Tokyo, and it's something I'll never forget. But funny story about Benny. Benny actually got married on the field in Norfolk. Benny was a guy that I came through. He was a little bit behind me, but because I was coming kind of back and forth a few times between the big leagues and that being injured, that I knew Benny for many years before Benny became the Flying Hawaiian.
Good guy, right?
Oh, tremendous guy. Awesome guy.
Yeah.
Really good dude.
And Met fans remember him positively. You know,
Absolutely.
he wasn't Met for a long time. He wore number 50 from 99 to 2001.
And we know why they both wore 50, right?
What's that?
We know why they both wore 50, the Hawaiian guys.
Well, of course, the 50th state.
Right.
Come on. What is this? Quick pitches for me?
Well, I mean, you had your tag out of your hat and you were saying you were not intelligent or something you said. I don't know.
I called myself an idiot. Listen, Benny, 322 games, but I got to get back. 99 to 2001 is one of the best eras in Mets history. Back-to-back playoffs, World Series. You know, he it was the postseason, Bill. He had the walk-off Game 3 home run in the 2000 World Series. 13 innings it took, and every Met fan, I guess, of age remembers that. You know, left field bomb, won it.
That's a heck of a feeling for him, right?
Yeah, NLDS against the Giants. In the 13th, yeah, he'll never forget that. And 22 games in the postseason, he hit 299 with an 853 OPS. So he produced, you know,
For sure.
and he was a likable guy. So 250s back to back. I know you maybe have some guys on your list. I'm not sure, but I'm just going to run through the next. They're just names that, ring a bell. Dwainer Sanchez. 06, got in the cab accident in Miami, and then came back in 08 and wore 50. For me, real quick, that was a big moment in the 06 season. You know, he got injured out for the year in a taxi cab in Miami, and it like screwed up his shoulder, and he never came back. I'm sure you remember this. The Mets had to trade, I think, for like Roberto Hernandez.
Was it a shoulder separation? Because
it was something like that. Yeah,
those are terrible for pitchers. You know, quarterbacks seem to come back from the shoulder separation. Pitchers, it's a little more pinpoint, I guess, than throwing the football. Nothing against throwing the football for the quarterbacks, but I think it's a little different. You know, Brian Taylor being another one that hurt his AC joint, which is separating of the shoulder. So.
Yeah. That was a big moment for the 06 season. Then you have Rafael Montero. He worked for a while, 14 to 17. Fun fact about Montero, doubleheader against the Yankees. It was Jacob deGrom, Rafael Montero, and Montero, Met fans probably remember, was that prospect making that debut, and Jake deGrom stole the show, and the rest is history.
Montero's got a World Series ring now, doesn't he?
Not only does he have a World Series ring, he got paid by the Astros.
Yeah.
And then he was sent to AAA the next year. So, yeah. Next one, Miguel Castro, hard thrower. He's been around to every team, I feel like. He wore 20 to 21. And the last one, Alvy, his rookie year. He did wear number 50 in 2022. He's now number 4. Right. But that's my list. Pretty damn good for 50.
Not bad. I got one. Only other one is just a personal thing for me and Juan Castillo, who came up just briefly in '94. We played together in Binghamton. He was always a little bit ahead of me, and then I kind of caught up with him, and then he went his own way. You know, his career took him on another path, but I saw that he was on the list too. I don't think he made more than a start or two, maybe.
I don't remember the name. I saw the name.
He's obviously a former teammate of mine, so when I saw him on the list, other than the guys we mentioned.
I always love when you tell the personal stories of the guys on the list that you have relationships with.
Yep.
We got to move on. Saturday. It was the first game at Clover Park. How do you call it? The official start of the season? None of the stats count, but
it's start of Grapefruit League.
Yeah.
First game of the Grapefruit League.
I was there, and it was sold out, and it came out that it was the second largest crowd in Clover Park or whatever history, name the right, ever. And it's the Juan Soto effect for sure.
Of course.
And everybody's probably wondering what was number one.
Yeah.
And I had to do a little digging, but I did. It was 2015. It was when Matt Harvey was coming back, I believe, from Tommy John.
Wow.
And he was facing, I believe, Steven Strasburg.
Wow. It's a good matchup.
Yeah. And I believe they listed Noah Syndergaard as a prospect to enter that game. So that was number one. And they actually set a record before we talk about Saturday real quick for the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, the first two games of 13,600 plus. It was the largest crowd for two games back to back in Clover Park history. So Met fans were pumped. I mean, that's what I get from it, you know?
Absolutely. They should be. You got a huge signing this winter. You got the marquee free agent out there, and Pete's back. So that
Yep.
the excitement level is definitely there.
Yeah. And so for Saturday, they put out a pretty good lineup, you know? You don't have to in spring training, but they had Lindor lead off, Soto, Pete, and then I forget who batted fourth, but it doesn't matter. So most people watching, listening, probably watch that game somehow, you know, wherever they get it. Soto, first at bat as a Met, not regular season, I get it, right? Second swing, and he hits it to left center field. It was like 440 feet.
Just left to
So,
just left to the batter's eye.
yeah, talk about making yourself heard, you
Right.
know? Like, the contract is what it is, but the buzz, when I was there, it was high, you know? And when he, like, took the field just for stretching, Lindor, too, you know, Pete got a great applause, but Soto really took over the game. I mean, his first at bat, we're expecting Soto to be 15 years of generational talent, you know, and you you can't start off better. You can't. It was
Yeah,
great.
that was a hell of a home run, and I've been talking with some of my friends, Mets fans and Mets friends fans that are Mets fan. I think that's actually his. I think that's where his power is. People were saying that he's going to want to stay in Yankee Stadium because of the short porch in right field. I think he's actually at his best when he's kind of hitting the ball to left center field. So I think that you got to see that right away. And I've obviously played on that field, and I go to that field every year still. That's a big ballpark there, and the ball doesn't necessarily fly down there. And that was an impressive shot, a nice way to start. Obviously, it doesn't mean anything until you get started, but it's better than going up there and obviously whiffing at three pitches or looking at three strikes. So exciting start for him, exciting start for the Mets fans, and I'm kind of gets the ball rolling in the long tenure that will be Juan Soto.
Yeah, 15 years. That's a long time, but he got the loudest applause. Um, I would say Pete probably got the second most.
Makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, of course, and just being there to put a bow on this, I was behind first base, right? So I'm looking at Pete, and I'm remembering all the podcasts, all the talk during the off season, 93 days, back
Right,
and forth, and I was just like, at the end of the day, there he is. You
right,
know, it might be for a year, it could be for the rest of his life. I have no idea, but it was just nice to see Pete back. You know,
absolutely.
after all the bullshit.
Well, I would think that to a man or to a woman, that if you ask a Mets fan, they would have wanted him back. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a Mets fan that say that they didn't want there's a better option than Pete out there at this moment. So obviously, with the contract, there's questions in the air, and we've talked about this. Let's hope that he plays in between the lines and not thinking about anything outside of the lines and what comes after this season comes to an end.
Yeah, totally agree. Um, Clay Holmes, I got to get your pitcher's perspective on this. So he started that game,
Yeah,
uh, you know, and he worked his ass off during the off season because he was already stretched out to, you know, 3 innings or
yeah,
for that game 45 pitches.
yeah.
He was perfect through three. Now I get it. The Astros were in town. They brought nobody, you know, but his stuff was filthy, and he's
Yeah.
working on his kick changeup, and he looked great. And I'm not going to get ahead of myself in spring training, you know. And we're going to talk about the rotation next. But if Clay Holmes could turn his stuff into 6, 7 innings, pitch 160, that is a master class right there. And he definitely has the stuff. It showed, you know, on Saturday. It was a good sign.
Yeah, I've been saying it for since he's kind of signed, and definitely over the last few weeks, that he is a huge X factor here for the team this year. And I've said, I believe that his stuff might actually play better as a starter, because when you look if you're not just a Mets fan and I'm in New York, I get to see both clubs play, and I saw him pitch numerous times, and I've said this numerous times. The soft contact that he gets is a little less forgiving when you're only up by a run, or you're looking to get 3 outs. So, like I've said before, his stuff is top tier. The movement on his sinking fastball plus the velocity is upper echelon. There's not many guys that can do that. So, like I've said before, his stuff plays, and I think it might play better as a starter. Now, obviously, if somebody that hasn't started for years, you have to worry about, kind of like with Manaea last year, with the running out of gas a little bit, but being pushed. But I think the plan is, again, with the six-man rotation, to try to afford him and Senga coming back off of missing a year some time to gather themselves and get that extra day rest. But he's an exciting. I'm going to use the word prospect, but he's obviously not a prospect. But he's obviously an exciting prospect for the club to see what he can bring to the team, and you can't get off to a better start, obviously.
No, you can't. We're not going to go crazy as one start, but I'll tell you this: I love the work ethic. Like he came in shape. He was already built up to where he had to be. He was perfect, and then he only threw, I believe, 34 pitches because it was 9 up, 9 down. He went to the bullpen.
I was going to say, did you know that he went down to the bullpen and throw a little bit more, right? Yeah, that's a good feeling right there when you got your job done before you ran into your pitch limit. That's a good feeling.
Exactly. So, positive. I like it because what we're going to do right now, not so positive here.
Right.
Sean Manaea, who the Mets just signed for 3 years. We talked about it forever. There was a question of who's going to start opening day this year, Senga or Manaea. We all wanted Manaea back. Oblique injury out of nowhere. He literally was with Johan Santana, who's a guest instructor, who came down, and Santana in the bullpen showing that change-up grip, and Manaea said that Santana was his favorite player growing up. Sure. All good vibes, And then the next day, bam, oblique injury, shut down 2 to 3 weeks, no PRP. He did alert the medical staff right away, but he thought, I guess, and the medical staff agreed,
thought it wasn't that bad.
That he could push through it.
Yeah.
But now we're looking at best, and oblique injuries are tough, Bill.
Yeah.
So that was a damper. The Mets rotation is suspect as it was, losing Frankie Montas, as we talked about before. And now Sean Manaea, that's 2 starters out of 5 or 6, And Manaea.
Well, to me, it's not, and I've said this, and you hate. It's the delivery is obviously what turned his season around, but for the fact that for it to be a right oblique, kind of makes a little bit of sense for a guy that's stepping so far across his body and then trying to pull that right side back to get the ball back towards home plate. Obviously nobody goes out there trying to get injured, or you hate to see him get injured, but to me that was my biggest concern, and I was thinking more down the line that it could be maybe a shoulder or something for somebody that's dropping his arm angle like that. But a little, obviously, a bummer, definitely a bummer, but maybe not so surprising with the fact that you've kind of changed some things, and then like we said last week about if they got the radar guns and the TrackMan out there right away at the beginning of spring training. Listen, everybody's human, man. When you know numbers, and I deal with this, obviously, it's even exacerbated when you have the kids and you're working with high school kids. But these guys we're still human. When numbers are being tracked, you start chasing numbers a little bit, maybe thinking I can get a little bit more on this or a little bit more on that. But who's to know, really?
I totally understand the human element, and the TrackMan that you alluded to last week.
Yeah.
But we talked about Frankie Montas and all that. But Sean Manaea has nothing to prove. Take time.
It's to himself, buddy.
Yeah.
And if that spin number says 2560, I could maybe get 2570. I can.
Let me ask you this:
athletes are very competitive weirdos, man.
Right, and you kind of just answered my question. So he came into camp, and he felt it right away, and he did alert the medical staff. I'm wondering, it's now about the medical staff. They have the stop, restart, whatever. They have the final answer.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, that sounds like it should have been prudent to maybe, at the very least, let's chill for a couple of days, and
Right.
or let's go get it looked at. Even if it's not even going back to New York, let's send him to a local place, just to get an image and see what's going on.
Yeah.
But maybe I don't know. Maybe they're afraid of the news and hope that the news isn't going to be bad. I don't know. Who knows what really goes on. And then getting the truth out of an athlete a lot of times is difficult as well. And I know I've been guilty of that in my career. I was guilty of that about when I hurt my elbow, going around saying, I'm fine.
Right.
I'll be all right. I'll be all right. Because the one thing that we really, really hate as athletes is being injured. And obviously he's still going to make his money, even being injured, but that's not why you really play. You don't really play for the money. You play to be out there, and you play to compete. So how honest was he really? Maybe he was telling them things where they could only interpret his words without doing tests and saying, oh, you know what, it doesn't sound like he's that bad. But I wouldn't put it solely on the medics. I would maybe put it a little bit on both. Or
No.
maybe he wasn't being 100% honest, and maybe they should have said, you know what, let's just chill for 3 days. Let's take
Definitely.
3 days off and see where we're at.
I totally agree with you. It's definitely on both. We don't know what was said, like from Anaya to the medical
Yeah,
staff, but the fact that they had to wait, through 2-3 weeks in
yeah,
to shut him down, no matter what, best case scenario, middle of April, end of April, best
yeah.
case. Yeah, and you're losing your top, one
Yeah.
of your,
He was going to be your guy.
yeah.
I mean, I
So
would say he was probably not penciled in, probably penned in to start. Written in pen that he was going to
yeah,
start opening day. I would suspect.
I would too. Um, and that brings us to what in the world do the Mets do? They're down two starters. Their depth, as everyone has talked about with McGill, Blackburn, and Canning, are now basically in the rotation, and you have no depth. And I don't want to screw it. The depth that they had is not good. We don't know what to expect from these three guys that I just mentioned. McGill, we talked about last episode. We know what he's capable of. Um, at this point, he's in the rotation, I would assume. And then you got Blackburn with the back injuries, and then you got Canning, who was arguably the worst pitcher in the AL last year. So
I think it might bring Budo into the mix again. I think they might have to reevaluate that a little bit, because he did have some success as a starting pitcher last year. Why
they
not?
would have,
I don't.
yeah.
I mean,
It just, you know what, Bill? At the end of the day, it just sucks.
right.
Because I understand all teams get this. We're not the Mets are not the only team, but when your rotation is the most suspect
Right.
of
Right.
everything, and
And
then
that's what
two,
gets hit.
yeah, two in a span of a week. You know,
Right. Right.
so we'll see what David Stearns does. We talked about Jose Quintana. He's
I,
still not signed, but there is news on Quintana,
yeah.
which is definitely newsworthy. The last time that we spoke, uh, he had the WBC qualifier start on March 2nd against
Right.
Brazil. He's
Right.
now out of that because of the MLB
Contractual.
contractual, whatever with
Yeah.
X team. So,
Something's up, obviously.
yeah, I mean, anybody would say that he has a deal pending, right?
That's definitely what it sounds like to me. I mean, I
Yeah,
did a little bit of research into him. What would possibly hold back with the Mets is it would be the Cohen rule. The Cohen luxury tax. If they sign him for a certain amount of money, he would be at 110% taxed. So
yes, he
whatever
would.
you sign him for, you add 110% to that. So let's say you sign him for 10 or $11 million. You're looking at $21 million you're actually paying. You know,
I mean, I don't think he would get that. I do
he
think
wouldn't
he's,
get 10 or 11 million. He made 13 last year and was one of the better pitchers on the club.
but we go back to, what we've discussed for a little bit. Why hasn't any team signed him? What, all that.
And I would think he might hold a little bit of, with the Mets at the very least, he might hold a little bit of the dice a little bit right now. Now
Maybe,
that they're in a situation. I
but
guess there's
it's,
another guy out there that had a good. I did a little I did a little bit of research into this, and Spencer Turnbull is a guy who's out there. He was a Philly, had some really good numbers last year. Like,
Tigers.
Was he a Tiger last year?
Well, I remember him from the Tigers.
Yeah. Well, he pitched with the Phillies last year and had like a 2.5 over 56 innings. And he's another one that you could get possibly cheaper, and he also has options, I believe. So, and I know that's a thing that's going on with the holding up the possibility of Iglesias coming back around and becoming a Met again. They want to be able to have options, and now trades for starters. If a team's going to be trading a starter to the Mets, who are they asking for?
Everybody in
Acuna.
the
They're asking for Acuna is going to be one of the guys for sure. So now that Madrigal is now hurt, that kind of puts their trade power into jeopardy a little bit with trying to get one of those guys out in San Diego. They don't need a third baseman; they have a third baseman. So Beatty is we don't know what Beatty is. We know that he's got all the talent in the world. He hasn't proved that he can do it yet on a consistent basis. So the Mets are in a little bit of a bind when it comes to what they're going to do. So obviously McGill's going to be right back in there again. Yep. I think that you have to really rethink Budo a little bit because he did have some success as a starter, and then make up your mind on whether you're willing to spend that little bit of money to bring back a known commodity and a guy that said he wants to be a Met in Quintana.
Yeah. It's definitely newsworthy. I don't understand how he hasn't signed now. By the time
it's strange that he's under a organizational contractual obligation, but there hasn't been any news as to what. So that means obviously something's pending or something's imminent.
Yeah. I'm all for Jose Quintana. How in the hell can I not be? And with what's out there, what's left, and the hits that the Mets have taken,
Right.
You brought up Nick Madrigal, and we got to talk about it. Listen, I don't know if he would have played a day with the Mets this year. He's got a split contract. He came off all year. He's been injury prone, all that. He fractured his shoulder on literally the first play of spring training. Horrible for him.
Unreal.
I feel horrible for him.
Yeah.
But so they moved him to the 60-day DL, and they signed this guy that I obviously have never heard of, but it was for cash considerations, and his name is Alexander Camnero, right? He's the 11th prospect they got him from the Cubs for cash considerations, right? And he's a top 100 prospect. It's just how loaded the Cubs are in their farm system, kind of like the Padres or the Dodgers, and they traded cash. He's a 24-year-old, but he's out of options, right? And he's put up great stats in his minor league career, and not bad when he was called up for a cup of coffee in the last 2 years with the Cubs. And he now owns a 40-man spot because they moved Madrigal to the 60-day. So what I'm thinking is, what in the hell are we doing here? You can't have 7 outfielders.
Possibly a trade piece, where they trade for cash and then hopefully maybe trade him again. Who knows? I think it is a little bit strange. Obviously, everybody loves depth. He doesn't have to make the club out of spring training to have no options. You can be in AAA and then be called up, and then we've talked about before. Stearns is not afraid to put guys on the.
I don't think he cannot be sent to AAA. He's out of options.
If he doesn't make the club, he has to be DFA'd.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's what makes this move, I guess,
a little bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah, and you would think, okay, something's in the works with the Mets. I don't know. But the fact is that maybe they try to get through. If they have to DFA him or anything like that, they could get him back through waivers because they give up nothing.
Well, because obviously, if they traded for cash, then I would think that they've already the Cubs had ran through the other organization's interest in.
Yes.
So that could be a possibility. Let's just hope we don't hear that Marte or one of the other guys is, or maybe Nimmo's not doing quite as well in his recovery. Let's just hope it's not something like that where they're feeling like they're going to have to carry him on the roster, on the opening day roster, because some of the guys that are penciled in to be starters aren't going to be healthy.
That was my first thought.
Yeah.
So someone's on the block. But it's tough to trade an $18-20 million Marte. And I know they've tried. we'll see what happens.
I think you got to keep Marte, man. You need that right-handed bat for when left-handed pitchers are out there as a
Absolutely.
DH. You're gonna need him. And
I know.
another guy that is he's got, like we said this before. Marte has a swag, but it's kind of a quiet swag too. And I think he's definitely a leader amongst the group of guys down there. I think that he's
And,
looked up to for his veteran status and the stuff that he brings to the organization and to the ball club.
yeah, biggest thing that I could think of for this year, he's very close to Juan Soto.
Oh,
So
well, yeah. I remember reading some comments just the other day that they were looking back at the playoff run last year, and anytime something big happened, Marte was involved or Marte was already on base.
yeah,
So you and I have always been a fan of him and what he brings to the club.
yeah. Listen, I would love if Marte and Winker are the DH platoon. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
But
it's not
this
quite Big Papi as your DH or
right,
Edgar Martinez as your DH, but definitely both two professional hitters.
we'll keep an eye on this. Alexander Canera move for now. Um, let's talk a little bit about Mr. Jeff McNeil. Okay.
Yeah.
I bring this up for a couple of reasons. We got Beatty and we got Acuna, right? And we don't with Iglesias. Just it's not happening at this
Doesn't
point.
look like it. Doesn't look like it.
It just doesn't look like it, right? We're so let's forget, unfortunately, Mr. OMG for this year.
Right.
I feel like Acuna and Beatty are fighting for a spot here, but at the end of the day, you don't have a backup shortstop for Lindor.
Right.
Unless you have if you have Acuna breaking with the team, you
Yeah.
know. But we talked about this. You want your at least the Acunas. Beatty is a whole different story, but Acuna's 22. You want him to play every day, and it's up to you, the listeners, and everybody. Lindor plays every day. You don't need a backup shortstop. And Neil could do it,
Until you do.
right? Until you do. And Acuna and Beatty, it's early in spring training, but they're both acting like they're going for that one utility role in the infield.
Yeah.
They're both hitting well. Beatty hit a home run on Tuesday. And the Met fan base, at least I could see on Twitter, some people are like, "Oh, he's doing it again." The guy's a AAA hitter,
4A player,
right? And spring training, but they're rooting for Beatty, because you see
he's an
that
easy guy to root for. He's not a jerk. He's had his struggles, but it's not like he's a jerk.
No, he's not at all.
He's a good kid.
Right. And he's actually played less Major League. This is crazy, Bill. He's played less Major League Baseball games than Mark Vientos somehow. Last year would do it. But the point is you can make the case that he's been given multiple opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, it takes a little while for guys to shine. But Vientos took his spot and never lost it. He ran with the ball. With the big club.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, look, to me, obviously, I would think that Acuna has the upper hand because he can play both second base and third base. I have heard that Beatty has been doing some work at second base and shortstop for Acuna. Beatty, I heard, has been working out at second base, but he's not going to be able to spell Lindor. Let's say if Lindor does get injured, Acuna can. And as you were going into talking about McNeil, that could leave McNeil to play against right-handed pitchers and Acuna to play against left-handed pitchers. And if you think back to the 86 Mets, who was their second baseman? Multiple guys.
Santana.
Shortstop was shortstop.
Sorry, Raphael was short. Wally
Right.
Bakken.
But he also had somebody that he platooned as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not like it hasn't happened before. So I would think that Acuna might have the edge. But let's talk about McNeil and what we're going to do with what we believe he's going to do this year.
All right. Jeff McNeil, he's 32. He's got 2 years left on his contract for $34 million, right? 2022 batting champion. He's been pretty bad since he signed that contract. 2023, not a good year. Last year, this is what we're going to talk about. His first half compared to his second half.
Yeah.
His first half in 2024 was abysmal. The stats, they're disgustingly bad. But then he came back in the second half after the All-Star break, and let me just read you his stats because they're monster. Played in 41 games, 289 slash line, had a 923 OPS, 7 home runs. He looked like the Jeff McNeil that we were used to.
Yeah.
He was swinging at more pitches, as he was quoted as saying. So
you know what he wasn't swinging as much at when he was rehabbing? Probably the golf club.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
be wrong though. I know I like to bust his balls about the golf, but
So, and then September 7th, he broke his wrist on a hit by pitch after all the, he had a monster second half. So I'm conflicted, and it's another X factor for the Mets lineup, right? First half, Jeff, last year, abysmal. Second half, Jeff, like best top 5 in the major leagues. So what in the hell can we think we're getting from Jeff McNeil in 2025?
I would suspect that with Acuna coming up and showing that he could play and play at the major league level, I would think that Jeff probably busted his hump and busted his ass this offseason to make sure that he was and is as prepared as he possibly can to continue this what happened in the second half of the season last year. Unfortunately, until he got hurt, he did manage to come back there at the end and did better than I would have expected come playoff time after missing all that time. Again, I'll put that back to, we've talked about this numerous times with the technology the guys are able to use now to get them back to game ready quicker, which is, it's outstanding that they're able to do that. But I would expect to see a better Jeff McNeil than you saw in the first half. I'm not going to say that he's going to have the power that he had in the second half. I'm hoping that he doesn't feel like he needs to have the power that he was showing there, especially right after the All-Star break. And just be the guy that we know that he can be, because he's obviously always been a big part of the core group of the team. And I think that he knows that it's his job to lose, but he could lose his job.
Yeah.
And he'll be a hard trade with that amount of money for a guy that's, if he's on the decline in his career.
The fact, you remember Jeff as a really good hitter. He won the goddamn batting title. Before that, he was a 300 hitter regardless. And like I said before, he's been declining.
Well, didn't they say he was going to be the number one guy to suffer for the change of the shift?
Yes.
Because he wouldn't be able to spray the ball around as much like he did prior to the banning of the shift. So maybe it's come to roost a little bit. Maybe it played in his head a little bit too,
That's a good point. But the shift is no more. And, first half Jeff showed that. Second half Jeff didn't. So first half Jeff, second half Jeff. I
expect him to be better this year. I do. I believe in him. And I've always liked him as a ball player. I believe in him. I think he's going to be better this year. He knows he's under the gun a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's a good ball player, and he always has been.
And one last thing on Jeff, we love Jeff because of his versatility. He could play left. He hasn't played third in years, but
he could.
Well, I guess.
If need be.
Yeah, right. He has, but right field at this point is frozen. Juan freaking Soto. So his versatility just got a little bit of a hit. So that goes back to your point where it's second base basically, and left field depending on how Brandon Nimmo's doing.
Yeah.
But that he maybe an Acuna or a Beatty who's never played second really, definitely Acuna. But as you always say, the competition will light a fire on your ass.
We know he's a fiery guy too, so he's fully aware. He's fully aware. I expect him to be better this year.
I do too. We gotta man, this is a tough one. We're gonna move on to the best reliever, breakout year, all that right now. Okay. I did a lot of research on this, Bill. I'm not gonna lie. And I'm wondering for the listeners who they think. The question is, out of who we think is going to make the 2025 bullpen out of spring training, who's the breakout guy? Who's the guy who's going to have the best year? And I went back and forth between two players.
Okay.
But before I say that, I want to get your thoughts before.
Well, I'm going to go right to the end of the game. I'm going to say Diaz is going to be much better this year, a year after, and that's he should be. He should be better.
All
But
right.
let's not go with the obvious of the guy that was the best closer in the game 2 years ago. I'm going to say, if healthy, Sean Reed Foley is going to be a surprise.
Whoa.
For some reason, he has a fastball that is only 96 miles an hour, but it doesn't seem like people seem to be able to put a bat on it.
Here's the thing with Sean Reed Foley. He's never healthy.
I said if healthy.
You did. You did. All right. Listen. Okay. You said Diaz, right?
I did.
And I knew you would. And that's my pick too.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got to be better.
So that's why I had a buffer. And the Daniel Nunes is my buffer. Okay. You know, he was lights out for 3/4 of the year, and then he had the forearm
Well, that's
tightness.
the worry. I was going to say that's the worrying factor with him. Because, and look, we knock on wood for him and we knock on wood for the organization. But once those forearms start to be a tweak, and they end up being a DeGrom, and they end up getting cut on. So we knock on wood for him. But no, I agree. He is an X factor as well. And if he can be healthy, yeah, for sure. I could agree with that and see that being a breakout
Imagine
guy.
imagine Nunes like he was last year. He dominated. He came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
We didn't know who the hell he was.
Right.
You know, but imagine him having a good year with AJ Minter, Stanek, and then we both agree, obviously, on Edwin Diaz.
Yes.
So with Diaz, I knew you were going to say Diaz, but that's why I brought up Nunes. But I agree with you, Bill. Diaz is that guy.
Yeah, I agree. He's going to be better. He did miss a year, and I know that you've been playing baseball your whole life, and you missed a year. What's the big deal? But he had to go through some stuff last year. Definitely had to at some point in time go through the fact of, is my knee 100% healthy, and can I, other than throwing a bullpen? Yeah, sure, you can go out and throw all the bullpens you want, but get out there in nut cutting time.
You know why your point is perfect? When the Mets clinched whatever it was, either the Brewers wild card series or the Phillies NLDS.
Yeah.
No, David Peterson closed out the Brewers series, so
yeah,
Diaz closed
it was
out
the Phillies.
If you watch it, you'll see it. No one ran towards Diaz to close it out like everybody does when you close out a series. They all went to Lindor.
Right.
And it was obviously on purpose. This was talked about.
Yeah, we're not going to go jump on Edwin.
Exactly.
And we're not going to let Edwin jump up and down.
But like
I was actually there for that game, so that was cool.
Yes, you were, and I saw you. That shot from the first base dugout or first base photographer booth or whatever. You're sitting third base
photographer,
or is that handed? So there you are. First,
I was right there.
What were you, like second row?
We were second row, and I was sitting on the camera well. Like I was resting my arm on the camera well of the third base dugout, and there was the Phillies. I mean, I could have talked to Ron Thompson if I wanted to. Could have said, "Hey, how you doing?"
That's a nice perk. Getting to let
it was nice. It was a nice little armrest. Yeah, I had a nice little armrest. It was nice.
Yeah. So we both agree on Diaz. He didn't have a horrible year last year, stats wise.
It's inconsistent, up and down.
I have all the stats in front of me, and I could throw them out, and I'm not. It just comes back to what I was saying, like with Jeff McNeil. Bad Jeff, good Jeff, right? Edwin. We all know. Are we going to get good Edwin or bad Edwin? But to accentuate your point, he's now a full year removed from that.
It's not even going to be a question anymore.
Exactly.
It's not even going to be a question. And I hope that he's, mentally strong going into it, knowing, feeling the positives of how he ended the season, because he ended the season on a very high note and pitched in some really big situations, including multiple innings, which is something that he never really did before. So he had to leave, even though, the team fell short. He had to leave with a pretty good taste in his mouth about how things were turned out for him after everything was said and done.
I gained massive respect for the 2024. He came back for 40 pitches in the Brewer series, I believe. He didn't want to leave. That just showed me massive balls.
Pitched out of a huge bases-loaded jam of his own making.
Yeah.
And,
well, that's right.
We both expect him to be the breakout guy, even though he's already been one of and at one point in time the top closer in the game.
And we'll put a bow on this before we get to the mailbag. it kind of goes with the Jeff McNeil thing, because they both hit their stride in 2022.
Right.
Jeff won the title. Edwin was the best pitcher on earth,
Well,
and
maybe it's one of those things where baseball will always let you know. Just when you think you've got it, it'll let you know that you don't got it, and it's got you.
let's hope that Edwin Diaz has that. He'll never replicate 2022, but no more. If he throws two balls that go to the backstop, shit,
Right. Right. Yep.
So, all right, Bill, mailbag time.
Mailbag.
We got a couple questions.
Okay.
Jimmy Lag, 678. He's got a question for both of us. It's about the Yankees, actually, and it's a good question because it's worth talking about.
Mm-hmm.
His question is, what do you think of the Yankees getting rid of their facial hair rule? Which, everybody I think by now knows that beards are allowed after 40 years.
Right. Well, I think it's a good thing for them. I think it's a smart thing for them. Obviously they're not going to let guys go out there and look like Grizzly Adams out there or one of the Robertsons from Duck Dynasty. But I think that, if you look back through the history of manhood, men have worn beards. You and I both sitting here wearing beards, one gray and one not as gray, or one not gray at all. But I think it's a good thing. I think that you can't say that they haven't maybe possibly lost guys due to the fact that they, because I think the mystique of being a Yankee isn't quite what it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Kind of like what the Knicks have went through. And, you hear the older generation talk about the Knicks. You're like, yeah, but it's the Knicks. Yeah, but it's the Knicks. There's a lot of people that don't give a shit that it's the Knicks and going to play in Madison Square Garden. So I'm not going to say it's quite that with the Yankees, but I think it's kind of similar. So if it comes down to I can grow my facial hair and go play here and make as much money because the Yankees don't seem to spend quite as much money as they used to, that I know it sounds childish and silly, but
not at all.
I think that guys enjoy having a little bit of facial hair.
Yeah.
And and we've talked about this, when guys leave the Yankees, what's the first thing they do? They grow a freaking beard.
Look at Luis Severino on the Mets last year.
Yeah.
You waited 7 years for that.
Yeah.
You made a lot of good points. Brian Cashman said, Hal Steinbrenner, their owner, who does not come out of the woodworks at all.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because they had a press conference over this.
It's crazy to think Devin Williams is the one that turned the tide after 49 years.
And the reports is that Devin Williams, who had a nicely groomed beard, he was the one, by the way, everybody knows at this point, I think, he was the one that gave up Pete's home run, but traded from the Brewers to the Yankees, so rental 1 year.
Elite closer,
But he shaved his beard and he looked, I'm going to say this, he looked like a thumb. It didn't look like, maybe because we're so used to the beard,
Of course.
Right. But Hal Steinbrenner said, that's a little weird, 49 years after his dad put this rule in, is that if it costs us one free agent over the last X amount of years, that's one too many.
I think he even said that his dad would be all for it if he knew that was going to be the case. Because I think when the Yankees were going through their winning run, guys would be more than willing to come and shave their beards off. I think that they've won one World Series since 2009, and I think that they kind of got to realize that, man, if we're getting held back a little bit by guys wanting to be able to grow a beard, it's a little bit ridiculous.
Let's have a little fun on this, though. The Yankees lost out on Soto. Mm-hmm. Just bear with me here, right? They got Bellinger, they got Paul Goldschmidt at first, and they overpaid for Max Fried, blah, 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 right? But is it a coincidence that this year, when their fans are just beside themselves, and it's weird because Soto was a 1 year rental. It's not like he was there for years, right? The next year, all these new, because the facial hair rule is now intact. Did you hear about the other one that they just changed?
I lay it on me.
They're not going to play New York by
Friday. Yes. After losses.
Right, after losses. So, It's almost like something. Tell me if I'm crazy. It's like to give the Yankee fans something to talk about, which we're talking about, other than
Look, it's always
fact,
been a thing.
the fact that they lost Soto.
Well, I mean, listen, the back page of the sports papers has always been a thing, and and if the Mets have kind of taken over the back page a little bit,
Good.
it's not surprising that the Yankees would then do something to take back the. And we talked about it the narrative. We talked about it last week. There's not a lot going on in spring training, so in order to have news, sometimes you have to make news a little bit.
49 years Jordan Steinbrenner enforced this, right? The last person that we really saw with a beard on the Yankees who was good was Thurman Munson.
Right.
So I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe George has been gone long enough, and they feel like they did the tribute to his rules, and the times have changed. It used to be. I mean, we could bitch about guys wearing different colored belts and guys wearing different colored spikes and all that. So I think that with everything else that's kind of come around in the game, that the beard rule is kind of has ran its cause, ran its time.
And to end this, I think it's really coincidental that all this, 49 years and the New York. Now,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know why we're playing music after we lose anyway. Let's be quiet and get out of the stadium, get back in the clubhouse, and
listen. So we brought up Soto. I got to put it up to the YouTube watchers right now.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. Can you see it?
I can see it.
This is a custom-made 2000 alternative black jersey, right? Beautiful.
It should say lighter on the back, no?
It should. Here's the front. Probably can't get a good look at it.
Bring the other side around. There you go.
Hold on.
There you go.
I'm doing terrible, but
you're not doing your best.
Nope, but I couldn't say no because in my opinion, the 2000 alternative black, they're black jerseys that we saw Piazza hit all those home runs and Edgardo, with the Ventura.
If I would have known we were doing that, I would have brought mine up that one of my fantasy camp friends brought to me a few months back.
Wait, repeat that. I didn't hear that.
My black 2000, number 25, not number 21, jersey is right downstairs. The exact same jersey, but number 25.
I know you're telling the truth, but I'm going to hold it up again.
That jersey, but says Pulsifer on the back with number 25 on it.
You're telling me that you have the best uniform, in my opinion, in Mets history, with your name on it because you pitched obviously for them.
Yeah.
That's
my friend Pat Vogt, Mets fantasy camp guy, brought it over to me a couple months ago. He lives in Center Moriches. I live in East Moriches. He texted me one day. He said, "Are you home? I got a surprise for you." And he showed up at my door with that jersey.
I love it. Because Soto's a 15-year. I feel like I just got married.
Wow.
15, okay, let's not dig deep.
I wasn't going there.
15-year commitment is what I'm trying to say.
He will not be a Met for 15 years, but I hear what you're saying.
Fine, whatever it is. But I could not say no when I saw this for sale. And my favorite jersey of all time, and I could get it in a Soto. So
it's a nice score. Very good score for you. I bet you can't wait. Did you wear it on? Oh, yeah, you hadn't got it yet. That's right. You hadn't got it yet.
You son of a bitch. Yeah, you're right. Let's tell the listeners. So I always, for the last 5 years, wore the Pete Alonso jersey that you can see now if you're watching on YouTube, but it's signed and then authenticated by JSA. So Pete signed it for me when I met him, and whatever. I can't wear it, so I wore my David Wright on Saturday, and you can't go wrong with that.
No, definitely not.
But I've been wearing that for a long ass time. It's a little bit used, if you will, but the Soto jersey is brand freaking new.
You're ready to rock it.
I am. We got one more question we'll get to. All right.
All right.
Jeff Cohen. He's got a question for both of us. We'll start with Bill. Injuries happen. They suck, but it happens. Bill, are players in quotes, too good of shape when coming to spring training? It seems like their bodies are tight and no flexibility. What are your thoughts, Mr. Pulsifer?
Well, I mean, I said earlier what I thought might be a cause for the right oblique to hurt on Mania, and obviously Montas getting hurt is an extension thing. You're extending out, you're hurting your lat. But I mean, in general, if you're just talking in general, I would say that maybe guys, if they're not doing enough baseball activity, because baseball activity, fielding ground balls, taking fly balls, other than swinging the bat or throwing the ball, is a little bit different. So I would think that maybe if guys aren't getting enough baseball movement activity in, that could be something that could, where they're in weight training shape. And not necessarily in baseball playing shape, that could be something that could lead to, I would think, to lead to injuries in spring training. I don't know if you can ever be in too good a shape. Maybe, I guess, Syndergaard as a starting pitcher, when he put on all the muscle mass and all that, that was in too good a shape, but not in, like, again, not in baseball movement shape. He was more in bodybuilder movement shape. Stanton's another guy that has dealt with injuries due to, they say that he's in too good a shape or doesn't have enough body fat. I know Preston Wilson had a little bit of that issue early in his career. Another guy with no body fat. It could be a thing. I think that, like, I'm going to go back again to just say maybe just the lack of baseball movements could lead to something where you're more in gym shape than you are in baseball shape.
That's fair. I mean, it just sucks, like we talked about before. Oblique, lat, whatever the hell it is. Um, I don't think any player, and you could disagree with me, they could work their ass off during the off season to prevent this, but shit happens.
Shit happens, man.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, I am going to say I'm not surprised that it's a right oblique as opposed to a left oblique for somebody that is stepping so far across this body to try to throw back over to the right, because you then have to use that oblique torque to to get yourself back to home plate. And I don't know what kind of shape Mania was in. I haven't seen enough to say whether he was a little bit
Listen,
possibly out of shape, or I don't know.
I'll say this. I told you last episode that I was there for the workouts, pitchers and catchers, day 1 and 2. Shulman and I had a belly.
Well, I'm going to say this. The undershirts with the sleeves cut off is not a
I know.
good look for a lot of major league pitchers, because it is going to enhance every little bit of body fat that you do have.
No. Let's make this clear. I'm a guy that's on his couch, but he's a professional athlete. Me
Right.
calling that he has a belly, shame on, like, I'm just saying.
No. I get you. I understand. As somebody that's
Yeah.
had a belly and has a belly and had a
And it
belly.
wasn't it wasn't anything crazy, and never that I did think that he's out of shape. But now that he's hurt,
Yeah.
I can't help
In a
but
mid in a midsection ish injury.
right. I can't help but connect it. Listen, I love Sean, and I was saying he came and didn't work. We saw all. Remember talking all off season about him and Pete working
Yeah.
out,
Yep.
so shit happens. I'll leave it at that.
Shit happens.
He's got a question for me, Jeff Cohen. He writes, last time I was in Port St. Lucie was 2021. What's new down there? I feel like both of us can answer that because you're down here a lot as well.
Yeah.
I'll go. I'll
Go ahead.
take
You go. You answer. It's your
Yeah.
question.
I'm not going to lie. You're a little bit of an influence on this because you love it down here,
I do.
But what's new down here, Jeff? It's would you call it a city?
It's insane.
Yeah, they have built themselves up to where they're on the map because, like, 15 years ago, it was Met spring training. And that's
Correct.
it.
I've got a good thing for Jeff. Seems how in 2021 was the last time he was down there. They finally finished the on ramp, off ramp from 95 getting onto St. Lucie Boulevard.
Damn.
Or St. Lucie West Boulevard. It's finally done.
There you go. That's it.
And there's 8,000 places to eat.
Yep.
And field 2 is still there, the turf field, right? But that's not going to be there soon, because that'll be the new Miami. Like I was talking about last week when I saw the Twins complex they had. It's kind of opened my eyes as to, the Mets do need to get with the time a little bit. But that's to come.
Because I remember quick pitches that we're going to get into next. You said Port St. Lucie, for you to end up, but for good reason. Like
everything you need is there.
15 years ago
and more.
Yeah. they've done a good job of commercializing it and making it a residential want to
Yeah.
go to place. Obviously the weather and all that. So what's new down there? That's basically it. I mean, it's not like they did anything magical, you know.
Right.
They just built it up.
Ask him that question next year, Jeff, and they'll have the new minor league clubhouse will be done.
Yeah.
It will be different.
And the reason why it's now like you said last episode, a go-to place. We got players now living there.
Yeah.
You know, like I know for a fact, I'm not going to name players, but like they don't live in Port St. Lucie. They live in Jupiter, or they live, in uh,
West Palm
wherever.
Beach.
Stewart, nice
Stewart,
affluent,
yeah, Stewart.
right? But now Port St. Lucie, like Brandon Nimmo, he lives there.
It's a
Like,
nice place to call home, man, especially in
yeah.
the wintertime. Summertime not as much because it's freaking hot, but wintertime it's a nice place to call home.
Let's get into some quick pitches, all right?
Yes, sir.
I did my best. Bill, it's episode 50. It's getting a little harder.
Getting hard, right?
Yeah.
You backed yourself into a corner with these
No,
quick pitches.
no, this will never stop.
All right.
There's always going to be questions. Let's start with number one.
Yes.
Bill, what is a food combination people eat that you can't get behind?
I think I've already said this one.
But let me give maybe
Okay.
an example.
It wasn't this question, but go ahead.
I probably asked it, but for an example for our listeners so they can think along our lines.
Yeah.
Kind of like flipping French fries in a Frosty at Wendy's or whatever,
I can get behind that, though.
You can.
I can get behind that one.
The answer.
I told you this. You didn't ask this question, but my answer is going to be an answer to a different question, and that's ranch on pizza. I cannot get behind that.
Okay, so I did ask you this.
No, you didn't ask me that specifically, but that was my answer to one of the other quick pitches.
Okay. So what can't you get behind other than ranch
on pizza?
Is there another one? All right.
Coleslaw.
Say that again?
Coleslaw on anything.
Oh, you're not a fan of coleslaw?
Not at all.
It took me 50 fucking episodes to realize that you're not a fan of coleslaw.
Have I ever told you what the worst nickname in baseball is?
Coleslaw?
Yeah, you know why?
No.
Because no one likes you.
Oh, God. That was funny. Number two.
Okay.
I can't even. Yeah. What is your favorite line from any movie? You got to put your thinking cap on. I know you and your movies are.
That's a tough one, bro.
No, that's why I'm asking it.
That is a real tough one.
I know your favorite movies. I know your favorite actors.
How about this? All I got is my balls and my word, and I don't break either for anybody.
Scarface.
Yes.
I love that quote. I hate the ending, but I love that quote.
The bad guy has to die.
Yeah.
That's
Say hello.
It works.
Yeah. All right.
I could probably come up with another one, but off the cuff, I'm going to go with that.
Okay. I like that. Number three. Would you rather be 12 inches tall or 12 feet tall?
Oh, 12 feet tall.
Why?
Dominating. Everything.
You realize there's a lot that goes into all this.
Well, 12 inches, that's a foot.
All right.
I'd rather be...
Okay. Can I rephrase?
Okay.
You're 3 feet tall or... Fuck 12 feet. You're 7 foot. You're like Wemby in the NBA.
Oh, Wembyana for sure.
7'7". Would you rather
4 is Wembyana? No, it depends. Obviously, man, because 3 feet would have
really tall.
There's not many 3 feet tall people that don't have some form of a physical ailment, and there's not too many 7'7" people that don't have some type of physical ailment. Which is I feel terrible to even say something like that, but I mean, if I'm Victor Wembanyama 7'4", I'll take that all day long.
He's 7'7". It's ridiculous.
Well, whatever he is, he's up there. Yeah. And if you can move like he does, sure, why wouldn't you want to be that big? You kind of stick out. Everybody wants to, ooh, look at that,
Right. You stick out regardless, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at like the tallest guy in the in history. I can't remember his name, but he was 8 foot something. But
I
the
know
man, he
you.
died in his mid-20s, and had all kinds of health issues.
I remember yes, and I remember talking somehow through the first 50 episodes. It, when you're that tall, health elements are going to come, and I was always, and I still am, Shaq. To me, I remember being 13 years old and he was on the Orlando Magic, and I'm like, how in the world do you? You're Shaq. You're a human specimen,
Well,
and you're.
obviously, if you're one of those guys, you better hope that you're really, really good at either basketball or football or something like that, because then you can afford to customize your cars, customize your clothing, customize it. It would be obviously much more difficult if you were 7'5", 7'6", 7'7", whatever it may be, and weren't very athletic.
That's gonna wrap up quick pitches. Before we wrap up the entire episode here, milestone for us and our our 1 day listeners, our OGs, if you will.
Our day ones.
I got a question for you. What are you looking forward to the most in spring training? It could be anything, like Mets wise, or is it everyone stay healthy at this point because all the pitchers need to be in bubble wrap, or is it Clay Holmes? Is it the Acuna Beatty challenge now for that?
Are you asking me, or are you asking our listeners?
Both.
I'm looking forward to being over and baseball season starting.
I mean, that's yeah, roundabout
Obviously,
answer.
health. Health and success. Health and success. Things heading in the right direction. Everybody staying healthy, and having the roster that you thought you were going to have. Obviously, minus a couple guys right now, moving in the right direction, and keep the good vibes rolling from what happened last year.
I'll dig that. That's gonna wrap up episode 50, boys and girls. I want to thank Chris behind the scenes. Bill, 50 episodes in the books.
Unreal. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everybody that's taken the time to listen, each and every one of them. And for those that are new, thank you for being part of it. And keep listening. We enjoy it.
Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your pets,
Hide
tell
your
everyone.
kids, hide your wife.
Oh, that too. Yes. So, for Chris behind the scenes, thank you for everything. And Bill Pulsifer, my name is Casey Lynn, saying so long from the Say Hello podcast.